Notre Dame is 2 wins away from winning the national championship. On Thursday, they'll be going up against Penn State in the semifinal. And now joining us, of course, is Manti, the legendary Notre Dame linebacker, won the Maxwell Award, the Chuck Bednarik Award, the Bronco Nagurski Trophy as well, all back in 2012. And now he's doing a kick-ass job with the NFL Network. And you can see Manti on NFL Network's Good Morning Football, weekdays at 8 a.m. Eastern, and on GMFB Overtime, weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on the Roku channel, and airing in syndication across the country. Manti, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this, and how you been?
Of course, brother. I've been great, man. It's a good start to the new year. Some good football, obviously, with Notre Dame winning that game against Georgia. I couldn't be happier for them, for Coach Freeman and the boys. But 2025 has been good so far. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on. So this is a tough Notre Dame football team. And I know sometimes you have to have some tough losses to go and have some glory moments, especially at a school like Notre Dame when you're trying to get to a place that the program hasn't been in a long time. But that was a program after week 2 when they lost to Northern Illinois. Not many people are expecting them to be in this spot. What really stands out to you about the resilience of this team and also their head football coach, Marcus Freeman?
Well, you said it at the last part is Coach Freeman. I am an honest believer that every team is a reflection of their head coach, his characteristics, his values. And, ever since I met Coach Freeman, he's made me want to run through a brick wall. So I can only imagine what it is for those guys over there that suit up for him every Saturday. I think I was there for the Northern Illinois game, and there was a lot of excitement coming off the Texas A&M win the week before. And, everybody talked about the trap game. But the thing about that Northern Illinois game after it was done, I think what stood out to me and what said everything about Coach Freeman that I needed to know was the Northern Illinois coach reached out and told him, "Hey man, there's some things that I saw that helped us to beat you. Would you be willing to listen?" And for the head coach of a program that has a lot of pride and a lot of tradition, it takes a lot of humility to I think listen to that type of feedback. And I know it wasn't comfortable for him, but look where the team is now. I think it's everything that Coach Freeman wanted it to be, and I couldn't be more happy as an alum of that school. And I know there's a lot of pride with a lot of guys, but Coach Freeman is the man. I said this the first time that he was named the head coach, that he's the man to lead that program, and I couldn't be happy for him.
Now, Brian Kelly, did a sensational job at Notre Dame. Unfortunately, you guys got blown out in that BCS national championship game. He was in the playoff 2 times and wasn't able to get a victory up against Alabama and Clemson. Do you just think Marcus Freeman is the better guy for that job than if Brian Kelly would have stayed? Because I don't know if they would have had the success if Brian would have stayed there.
Well, let me say this about Brian Kelly is a good offensive-minded coach. He knows what it takes to have a successful offense. And I think when you're talking about a head coach of any program, and you can look across the board at all the great head coaches, they not only understand the X's and O's of the game, but they also understand how to connect with their players. They understand how to get the most out of their players and how to really push them to become the best version of themselves. And I see that in Coach Freeman. I see that in Coach Dan Campbell. I had the great opportunity to be with him in New Orleans when he was the tight ends coach, interim head coach. And just to be around him, there's certain characteristics and certain feelings and certain culture that is built in the building when you have somebody like a Coach Marcus Freeman and a Dan Campbell that you just really buy into them, and I'm a firm believer that anybody can go up on a chalkboard and draw X's and O's on the board. It takes a very special leader to turn those X's and O's into actual plays that can become highlights and lead you to a championship. And so that's why I've been such a believer in Coach Freeman since the beginning. Is he not only understands the game from an X's and O's standpoint, but he played the game at a high level. And he has those leadership characteristics where you want to follow that guy wherever he goes, and he'll stand up for you. And I think that's the biggest difference with Coach Freeman compared to Coach Kelly.
Talking right now to Manti. You know what it's like to dominate a program and dominate the nation while at Notre Dame. Xavier Watts, right, got all the praise last year, still had a chip on his shoulder, got snubbed, wasn't a finalist this year. But, man, what he's doing week in and week out is really impressive. You know how tough that is to be at that level week in and week out. What stands out to you with Xavier Watts?
Man, Xavier Watts, I think what's so beautiful is he's kind of riding off of for some years now. we've had some really good safeties kind of come out of Notre Dame. Julian Love, Kyle Hamilton, and now Xavier is kind of the next one. And I played with another one, Harrison Smith, who we just saw last night play for the Vikings. Notre Dame has a tradition of producing really good safeties. And Xavier, when I watch him in that system that they have over there at Notre Dame right now, it's an NFL system. And for any team that's looking for an all-purpose, all-around, all-pro safety, you're getting that in Xavier Watts, not only this year, but last year. His ability to take the ball away, his understanding of football. And you see that when you watch Notre Dame play, is you watch how he moves around, he watches how he disguises, and he watches how he gets interceptions and forced fumbles and all of that. It says a lot about that young man and his ability to stand out amongst stars. You know, when you are amongst a whole bunch of Division I guys who are 5-star, 4-star guys, and you stand out amongst them, it says a lot about Xavier Watson. I'm excited to see how far he goes, not only in his college career, but in his NFL career.
That game up against Georgia, Manti, when you look back at it, right? Special teams were dominant. Defense was dominant. And now the question is, when you go up against Penn State, can the offense take it to a different level? When you look at the quarterback and Riley Leonard going up against a good Penn State defense led by Abdul Carter, where's your confidence that Riley Leonard could play his best game up against Penn State?
You know, I've been really impressed with Riley Leonard's growth over the year. You know, he's had his struggles with his accuracy, you know, in all parts of the field, whether it be a short pass, deep pass, whatever it is. But one thing that really stood out to me this past game was Riley's competitive nature. I think on that 3rd and 7 call where he scrambled to the left side of the field and jumped over a Georgia Bulldog defender to make that first down. That says everything I need to know about the young man. Going into this game against Penn State, if anything, I would tell Riley, like, just do what you do, man. You know, I think the way that they have him set up with the RPOs, with the quarterback designed runs, I think they're doing a really good job. I felt that was a great adjustment because Georgia was doing really good against the run. And so when they switched to those quarterback runs with Riley Leonard, that's when we started to take, you know, make a little bit success in that run game. And I think if we're able to balance that out and Riley just plays his game, I think we'll be okay.
Wrapping up with Manti Te'o, does a great job now at the NFL Network. Obviously, your story has been well documented. I love the documentary that came out a few years ago. Selfishly, I was in it interviewing you at the Heisman, so I did like that part of it. But also, to get real serious here for a second, I thought it was a good way to understand what really did happen. And I think it changed a lot of ways that people look at you. Just wondering, how therapeutic was it to finally get the entire version of your story out there when you did the Netflix doc?
Well, it was very therapeutic, and honestly, it got very dark. I'm not going to lie. You know, I thought that I was able to heal from a lot of the trauma that happened after 2013. But when you go into a documentary and you start going through text messages and, you know, old stuff that you had to, you know, create context for the viewers, old emotions start to come up that needed some addressing. And I was just very fortunate that I had my wife next to me, that she was very supportive. She understood what a task it was going to be, not only for myself, but for our family. She was pregnant with our oldest at that time. So there was a lot of things going for me during that whole process that kind of kept my mind anchored in what was truly important. And I'm grateful for everybody that was a part of the documentary, because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just my story, that it was the entire story. You know, whenever you hear somebody's story, you're always going to ask, what does the other side say? What does the other side have? You know, what are their comments? And so what the greatest part about that film was we had everybody that was around the story at that time included in the piece. And we let the viewer kind of have their interpretation of it like art should be. And so I was very grateful for it, for Ryan Duffy and for Tony Vainuku, the two directors that directed that piece, because my life kind of 180'd at that point, and everybody kind of remembered who I was before all the drama. And those who didn't know who I was, you know, they had a respect for me and admiration at that time that, you know, that it had been a long time since I got that kind of feedback, and I was really appreciative of it, and I'm trying to push that narrative forward now.
Perfectly said. It was really cool to see the response and how positive then people were talking about you after the documentary. While we have you here, I know you do a great job with the NFL Network now. Gerard Mayo out in New England, Doug Peterson out in Jacksonville. I kind of feel as if Mike Vrabel is going to go back to the Patriots and be their head coach, and then I'm going to predict that Ben Johnson is going to be the next head football coach of the Jaguars. How about that?
Well, I think that's a good prediction. I think everybody has what they think is going to be the next thing. I think if anything, it goes back to what I said before. Every team is a reflection of their head coach. So just ensure that when you have those meetings with those head coaches, if they don't make you feel like you want to run through a brick wall, that ain't the guy for your team. And so that's if I could say anything for those franchises that are looking for a new head coach, just keep that in mind, and I think they should be okay.
And like you said, you're around Dan Campbell. You were also around Sean Payton. The Lions, people expected them to be here, but with all those injuries, it shows the true leader that Dan Campbell is. And then for Sean Payton, man, who would have thought they'd be a playoff team this year? But he found his guy in Bo Nix, and that's been a pretty damn good 1-2 punch this season.
Yeah, there's something to be said about Sean Payton and a really good quarterback. He just, when you have that pairing, great things happen. You saw that in New Orleans with Drew Brees. Great things happen. And Bo Nix is one of those quarterbacks. One thing I love about Bo Nix is this, and I'll say this, Zach, is in the day and age where all of these quarterbacks are getting to the NFL early and they don't have a lot of reps under their belt in college, for somebody like Bo, who had a very long college career, he saw a lot of snaps, he played a lot of snaps. You're starting to see the difference in the maturity at, the way that he plays this game. He's seen everything. And then when you bunch him up with a guy like Sean Payton, beautiful things happen. And we saw that yesterday against the Chiefs, him making those long runs, those nice passes. And so I know that the Chiefs are going to be somebody to deal with in the AFC West for a long time. And what a great division that's going to be with Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers, with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes over there in Kansas City. I'm anxious to see what they do with Las Vegas, but the AFC West is going to be a very strong division for a long time, especially with Sean Payton in there now.
Yeah, I was all waiting to see if Antonio Pierce is going to be back or not. I know he had his press conference a few hours ago. Last thing I'll ask you, Manti Te'o, Adam Schefter just had this about an hour ago. The Bears have sought permission to interview Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy and are awaiting a response from Dallas. If the Cowboys don't allow permission this week, the Bears can interview McCarthy after his exclusive negotiating window with the Cowboys expires on January 14th. In your gut, do you feel like McCarthy will be back with the Cowboys, or is he going somewhere else?
Man, honestly, with how the Cowboys have kind of finished off this year on uptick, I'm not too sure if they were continuing on that decline. I would say that I don't think that he would be in Dallas again, but I think where they're heading, there could be a chance that he's still in Dallas, but I'm not too sure. What I do know is, certain names go around the NFL as far as coaches, and when you're a Super Bowl winning coach, which he is, it's hard to go against him, And so, whether he's with the Dallas Cowboys or not, I think that he'll be with the team eventually if he's not with Dallas.
He is Manti Te'o. He's an NFL Network analyst. You can see him on NFL Network's Good Morning Football weekdays at 8 a.m. Eastern and on GMFB Overtime weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on the Roku channel and airing in syndication across the country. Manti, it was great to reconnect with you. Appreciate you doing this, and good luck to Notre Dame coming up on Thursday.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Happy New Year.